Happy release week.
Oh my God. It's been bananas. It has been so cool. Books Are Magic, who we're with right now, did like a midnight release, very Days of My Youth, Twilight release
Yes.
style.
Yes.
And that was so much fun. And I'm just like, I'm still like on cloud nine. So shout out to Books Are Magic for bringing the magic.
Yeah, that was incredible. I saw pictures of that on social media, and I will say, I saw the picture of someone who had cosplayed as August. And so I was like, I want to dress like Jane. But then I remembered every time I do an event, I'm just like drenched in sweat because I did it. So I was like, I'm not going to wear a plastic, like a fake leather,
Yeah.
just like sweat trap, but it's here.
Yes, no, that's actually would have been really embarrassing for me because I almost wore my Jane outfit today.
That would have been cool.
It would have been cool. We would have also been in the same outfit,
Yeah,
but
right.
I got right.
Such
I
a
know,
very specific outfit that like then you are just like stand-ins for the same cartoon character.
I know. I got like I found online like a t-shirt from Access Kansas City, which is like one of the punk venues that Jane would hang out at. And I was like, I was gonna wear it, and then I was like, exactly the same as you. It's like last night I wore my jumpsuit and I was sweating like the whole time. So
It's
yeah.
such a fun surprise every time where you're like, okay, well, my house is 48 degrees inside. I think I'll be comfortable this time.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be talking about this book.
Yeah.
Before everybody got on, I was telling Casey that I like resisted the urge to do the live text or message the whole time because it's just everything that I want in a book. And I'm sure some of y'all have already read it and agree, and the rest of you are in for a treat. And like Serena was saying, put your questions in the Q&A. But yeah, it's like the fact that you can write this like sweet, sexy, angsty, like longing, pining, cute, adorable romance, but then also like there's such a huge found family element. There's such a huge like New York as a character element, and then of course like the time slip element. It's just like it seems like you just took a lot of your favorite things and just like made a smoothie. Is that like sort of how it happened? Like what was the starting point for it?
Yeah, I mean the starting point was really the subway. I think like I was traveling to New York at the time. I was like right after I signed my deal for Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I'd been to New York a few times before, but this was my first time going as like an adult
Yeah.
who like was going to do a thing and not like, like this is a trip with people. And it was the first time I like had to take the subway by myself. And my friends, my wonderful friends, like, walked me to the turnstile and gave me my directions and like sent me off to school. And I really had my first experience like navigating the subway and learning it, which is not easy. The signs are very counterintuitive in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I just like, there was like that moment when you're like on the train and another train passes in a different direction, like in a tunnel or something. And if you look out your window and you look into the window across, there's like this strobing effect as like all of the windows pass you. And it's like people just blinking in and out. And there's like, I think of like sliding doors. I think of like the TV show Lost. I think of a lot of like pieces of media that I've loved that have involved that sort of like very fleeting moment of like passing connection with another stranger, and if one little thing was different, you would have never crossed paths with that person and you would have never seen them ever, and it kind of all started from there. And I was like really drawn to this time travel thing because of a lot of like, I really have enjoyed like a lot of sci-fi TV shows that like mess around with time travel. I like tickles my brain,
Yeah.
And I just wanted to put my own very non-scientific spin on it.
The best kind of time travel, because when it's
Yes.
too scientific, you're like, you have just written yourself into so many corners.
No, that was like definitely the hardest part was like having to research like temporal physics. I was like, oh, this is not going to stand up to scrutiny.
Yeah.
Um,
We're here
but
for
it,
time.
Right. No, but it's exactly what we were talking about before we came on, which was another thing that was a big influence on this was just all of those sort of light magic romantic comedies of like the late 90s and the early 2000s where, you know, it's 13 going on 30 where you're cast forward in time, or Kate and Leopold, was one of I looking back now, it's kind of like an average rom-com, but I remember thinking it had really invented something as a kid.
I could not possibly agree more with you. I think at the time I was like blown away and was like, they're so in love. And then I think I tried to rewatch it a few years ago and was like, okay, so they're together for like 3 days or something, and like, how is this going to work out? But
and then she fully goes back to like Regency era New York at the end, and I'm like, whoa, that was a big choice.
You know what life, like, did you do one Google search? I guess that was before everybody was Google searching, but like maybe ask a librarian if that's a good idea.
Yeah, she just committed to live through a lot of stuff. Like,
and I
wow.
definitely like had concerns reading the book, which I won't give away what happens in the end, but the whole time I was sort of like, okay, we'll see. Like when you introduce that time travel element, it's like there are really cool things about any era, but there's a lot of really bad things about every era too.
Well, I kind of wanted the reader to be like, oh, I don't know how this is going to work out, because I feel like if you've read my stuff before, hopefully you can trust me and that I'm gonna like give you a happy ending. And I don't like, I've thought about like going, because I get people like tweeting at me being like, oh, I've heard that it's sad, like I've heard that you're gonna cry, and I'm like, you might cry, it's not sad. And I almost have tweeted like, it's okay, it's a happy ending, like, but you know what, I want people to just trust me.
Yeah I think they should. I mean, I think they should, and I think your readers really do. Like there are 300 people in here, so I think a lot of people trust you, where it's like, I mean, I think that's what makes your writing and all of my favorite kind of like romance kind of genre bent, in that they kind of veer outside of maybe just the love story. I think that's what makes all of those the greatest, is just knowing like there is going to be real life tension and drama, and like August has like this mystery that she's kind of dealing with that's like not been a great thing in her past, and just feeling like it's like, yeah, this safe place to explore these darker themes, but it feels like you're just fully supported the whole time. And like I said, I was like nervous because it does, but that's just because you're a good storyteller. I was nervous because there's something really at stake there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like something I also love about your books, is I feel like you also like explore these themes of like really, really complicated like grief and family trauma and loss, and like and it does, like, romance feels like such a safe space to do that, because like there's this safety net of like the happy ever after under you.
You're like, there's a caveat to any bad thing that can happen.
Yeah,
I'm not going to ruin these characters' lives.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if you feel similarly, because so Red, White, and Royal Blue, did that come out in
2019?
2019. Okay. Yeah. So I feel like even then already, I think people have just been reaching for this kind of book more, but I feel like there just couldn't be a better time for One Last Stop to be coming out. Like,
oh my God. It is
in so many ways.
It is such like an accidental pandemic book. I mean, I wrote it first draft in 2018, and then the second draft in 2019, and then I like was line editing 2019, the beginning of 2020. But none of this book at all was written during the pandemic, and I had obviously no idea it was coming. And so like I remember like going back for past pages like in the middle of COVID, like COVID in New York, where like COVID in New York was, I mean, just beyond. And just like reading this part where Jane is talking about like how much she like misses just life, like misses like silly little life things, like just like going to get a beer with your friends, like going to the movies. And when August kind of reflects on how she's been like running between the train cars because she's like somebody who's trapped in this one little place and that's all she can do to feel alive. I'm like, aren't we all just running between the train cars?
That's like the lower back tattoo I will be getting. Aren't we all just running between train cars?
Oh my God.
But then it's like, it does in so many ways feel like the pandemic book, because there is that sort of like isolation element, but then at the same time, it is such a love letter to New York, it feels like. And like, I will say, so I did a short residency at the very end of my undergrad years in New York, and reading this book, I just really related to like August's new New Yorker take on things, how she's like, if you stay in New York for longer than a few months or I don't know if she says a few months or a few years, but whatever, like you're gonna get really sick of the subways,
Right.
basically. But to me, it's like still magic. And like I was there for about 6 months, and so like the whole time I was just still like, this is amazing. Like
Yeah.
all of these chances for connection, and like you were saying, it's like everyone you see, anytime you see a hot person, basically you're just like, wonder what they're like, I wonder what they're doing. And there's so many hot people in New York, like
There's
that's
a lot.
a fact.
There's like a lot of hot people, and there's like so many different varieties of
Yeah.
hot in New York. Like,
I didn't know that was a kind of hot person to me, and now I'm like,
yeah, there's like so many people. I feel like at least like once a week on the train, I see somebody who's inventing a new kind of hot, which is pretty cool. Where they're really like the hot economy is booming in New York City.
I love to hear that. I love that COVID hasn't, tanked the hot economy.
The hot economy. Yeah, no, I mean, it's so funny because like I'm kind of calling this like my first year in New York, because I've been in New York for like a year and a half now. But the first year was mostly COVID. Yeah, I moved here 6 weeks before lockdown.
Wow. You know what? Unfortunately, you probably could have saved a lot of money on your apartment if you had waited 7 weeks.
Yeah, it felt pretty wild to be like paying New York rent to like sit in my living room. But I'm just thankful, that I get to live here still. But I feel like now I'm entering this like first year where I get to like experience a lot of things for the first time that you usually experience for the first time in your first year, like getting really drunk on a rooftop, and like things like that. And like
you had a whole year to get really drunk on a rooftop.
Yeah, like I was able to like gather some of my like vaccinated friends the other night for like before the midnight release, and I was like, this is my first time doing a shot outside of my house. So in a very long time.
Like the landmarks are just getting very minuscule. You're like, I'm wearing hard pants today outside of my house.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this book, it is so like weirdly what I would want and need to read right now as a reader. And I didn't plan it that way at all. And I'm really like, it makes me really happy to think that hopefully it can be that moment for other readers, Yeah.
It really is. It does feel like the universe was like, we're going to need one of these. And especially hearing that you drafted this before your debut came out.
Yeah, well, yes. So yeah, I sold my debut, and then like while I was in New York for like meeting my editor for the first time, she was like, yeah, can't wait to see what you're going to pitch next. And I'm like, me too. Like I started kind of panicking because like Red, White, and Real Blue is so like high concept and like big. And I was like, you can't just like pull another like thing on that level of stakes out of thin air, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so I guess the only stakes that are higher are like literally like time and space.
What about that jump? Like, I love that your editor and your team were on board and were just like, yeah, we'll be there with you.
I mean, honestly, I came up with this idea and then I worked on it privately for like 6 months, just kind of like, it was my little like, that's like when I do my best work is when I'm like sitting off in a corner with my little my little toys. Yes. And then I pitched it to my editor, and I had pitched her like a couple things at the same time. And it was like sort of like my like option book. And I pitched like a few things, and I put this one at the top, and I basically like very heavily like tried much harder with the copy of that proposal.
Yeah, so you're like, this is the one that I have already secretly written. Please
it. Yeah. And she was like, you know what? This is really weird. Like, this is really weird, but I trust you, and I think that you can do it. Like, if anybody can do this, it's you. And I'm like, that was the vote of confidence I need, because I was honestly bullshitting. Like, I don't know that I can do this. But yeah, so I wrote it all. I wrote the entire first draft before Red, White, and Real Blue came out. And then actually it was going to originally be a summer 2020 book.
Whoa.
And then like I was supposed to like finish revising it like around the time that Red, White, and Real Blue came out. And like shit just got really crazy with, things just kind of like started popping off with Red, White, and Real Blue. And I was like, I need more time. And my editor in her generosity was like, of course you can have more time, but we do want this to be a summer book. So if you take a couple more months, we're going to push it a whole year. So actually, I'm like really thankful that happened, because A, I think it's a better book now.
Yeah.
And B, I think this is the perfect time for it to be coming out, you know?
Yeah, it really is such a gift. And I think in the beginning of like COVID times, we all thought like, we need happy stuff right now. But I don't think any of us knew that we would be like, just kind of starting to
Yeah.
come out of our cocoons at this point.
Yeah.
And this book is just like it made me really excited to get back to New York and like be around people. And yeah, just like the magic of being on a crowded train or like,
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. So I mean, I love that you were able to write that first draft before, because I can only imagine like the amount of pressure you would have felt trying to draft after something that was such a sort of like phenomenon on the level of Red, White, and Royal Blue. Like that book was everywhere, and now this one is everywhere. But like, I can't imagine trying to write this with those expectations hovering over it.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, like, yeah, I had no idea how Red, White, and Royal Blue was going to perform when I was writing this. But at the same time, I was still so in my head with the first draft, because it was the first time I knew for sure that someone was going to read this,
Right.
you know? And like
Yeah.
with Red, White, and Royal Blue, that was just like my little passion project that I would do when I was like, I had free time at work, or I was like, I was at home, and I was like, okay, I'm going to write like 1,000 words before bed. And it was so just like, I want to see if I can do this. I'm like having my quarter life crisis. This is one of my things I'm trying. It's one of the things I've always wanted to do, but I've like never pulled the trigger on it. um and it was just for fun, and I kind of told myself like, it's okay if no one ever reads this.
Yeah.
And with this one, it's like, as soon as you have in your mind that someone will absolutely definitely read this, then that's when I started like completely second guessing every single choice that I made, and just like being so much more concerned with like how every single reader would interpret every single line. And so like, I think that like, and this is something I think I'm going to do the rest of my career, is I just basically for the second draft, I was like, I'm going to pretend that no one will ever read this. I'm going to
Yeah.
pretend that like my deal does not exist, and this is just for me, and I'm writing what I want to read and what I want to write and what I think is fun. And it was so much better the second time around. So I think that like, even if I had written it, a year ago, I think I would have done the same strategy, because it's what I did with my third one. I'm like, I'm writing for what my third one is, like what I like to read, and then like what like two of my friends that I was talking to when I was writing a lot of it like really wanted to read.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of writers in this chat, because there usually are. And I feel like that for me is one of the things that I wished people had told me before I published, was like, basically really enjoy when you're writing something not knowing, like it feels at the time excruciating if you're like actively trying to publish. It can feel so excruciating to be like, will anyone ever read my work? Will I ever
Yeah.
be known by the universe or whatever? But then once you publish, you're just sort of like, oh shit, like this is
Yeah.
now a job. And will I ever feel like I'm just doing this for me again? Will I ever have that like intense ecstatic joy of just making something like with no expectations?
I know, that's why, but see, that's why I love my procrastination projects now. Like when it's like the thing that's like I could not possibly be working on for work for like another year and a half. I'm like, ooh, that's what I'm gonna think about before bed tonight.
Yeah, that's very real. I think I get like a rush of energy every fall, and then write a secret book that I forget about. And then like 2 years later, I pull it out. I'm like, is this a thing? And then sometimes I tell my agent, sometimes I don't. So I really
Yeah.
relate with that. Okay, so hold on. We got to back up a little bit. So you said that the subway and just kind of seeing
Mhm.
the light flickering and flashes of people
Yeah.
kind of gave you this image or this feeling of like the time slipping.
Yes.
But I do want to hear about August and Jane, because
Yes.
they're so different but so well suited, and I want to hear how you like found them or how they came to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I started with Jane. She was like, August was like a really, really hard character for me to pin down in the first draft. Because I actually tried to write her in first person, which I've not ever done before. Like, I'm very much like a close third author. And for some reason, I was like, let me try
Yeah.
first person, let's switch it up. And I wrote the entire first draft in first person. And I could not get her because I was just too close to her. and I couldn't like see all of her. And so I actually, the second draft, I rewrote the entire thing, and it was 113,000 words, and I rewrote the entire thing into third person. Which was great. That's part of why I was like, I need more time on these revisions.
I'm rewriting the entire book because I made a grave.
Yeah, it was. I really like did not catch that at. Really could have caught that, 6 months earlier and saved myself a lot of trouble.
But when you commit to something, there is sort of like that sunk like cost reward,
Yes.
whatever, where you're like, I already did this, but like it obviously paid off, because it's actually really surprising to me that you didn't know who August was, because August has this really rich backstory and a really specific, like, she has so many details, she's not like a broad strokes character or like a trope character, really.
Mm-hmm.
She has details that kind of add up to everything that she does and how she says, how she thinks about Jane, all of that. So it's so interesting though, because I'm thinking about my own writing, and I'm just like, I write in first person usually because that's how I can get into someone's head. So it's really interesting that you needed to pull back, and it like is exciting to me from a craft perspective to think of someone being like, it's easier for me to see this person from the outside and like build up that history.
Yeah, no, it's so much. I felt like I couldn't see like all of the sides of her. I could only see like from her point of view, and I really need to be able to see her from every angle to like really write her. And I think a lot of her backstory was really just informed by like kind of reverse engineering what the plot would demand. Because I knew, like, because I said I started with this idea of like a like time traveler who's like kind of stuck on the subway, and the love interest would be that, and then the main character would be somebody who is like really, really invested in getting them off, and also that like includes, as Liam Neeson would say, a certain set of skills. Like
he would say to any question, like
right,
any question, that's how he'd answer.
Right. It's like she needs to come like preloaded with like these things that she can do, and like these instincts that she has to notice things, and like knowing how to access historical records and archival stuff. And so I was like, what kind of person is this? And at first she was going to be like an investigative journalist or something. And then I like really, really got into this idea of her being this like kind of reformed girl detective, like sort of like she was a Nancy Drew in her childhood, and now she's like trying to figure it out. And then when I started to think of like her mom, and like what her background would be, I started thinking about like Veronica Mars. And I started thinking about Veronica Mars, and then that made me think of Rory Gilmore. And I was just thinking of like that sort of trope that I enjoyed in a lot of media when I was growing up, of like this like scrappy young girl and her one single parent is us, you and me against the world, and like her entire character arc and everything about her revolves around that relationship with her parent and what she's learned from them. And then I was like, what happens to that person when they turn like 23 and they are like, oh, I have no friends because my only friend is my mom, and like, and I really wanted to explore like what that person would look like if you like really turned that dial up to 11 and like took off like the cute CW filter.
Right.
And like, and it's just like, well, actually it was like kind of a messed up situation. And so like that was kind of where things started to come together for her. And it really helped me understand, like I knew I wanted her to be this like kind of prickly character because I wanted her to feel really different from Alex in my first book, who is so like arms wide open, so I want her to be really guarded, and it helped me make sense of like, oh, this is her background. Like her mom is this person who taught her to have her guard up everywhere, and that's kind of like how it all came together for her. And it was so fun to like, I have like sort of like an archetype that I really love is that like girl detector, like Jessica Jones, type of like really scrappy, little thing. And then Jane was just like, I mean, I do think that like she is very much in a lot of ways like the archetypal butch lesbian who you like can rely on to do anything. Like she will move a couch for you, she will come and like help you cook dinner, like she can do it all, she knows how to make bread probably. And so like that was a big part of it, but I also just like really wanted I wanted to create this person who could like make the best of the situation that she was trapped in. So I'm like, this is somebody who makes friends everywhere she goes. She's never bored because she's always talking to somebody. She likes to just really get in there with people and make connections, and you know, she'll never really be bored. But at the same time, I want there to be that sort of like poetic irony of like, but she's also somebody who wanted to see the world, and she's trapped on the subway going round and round through Manhattan and Brooklyn every day of her life. And then like also the plot really demanded her backstory, because like she needed to be kind of a drifter and somebody who was kind of like moving through life really quickly and really abruptly dropping and like cutting and running, because I needed it to be believable that August was a good detective, and that was not like the reason she couldn't find Jane was not that she was like actually a bad detective. Yes. So those, all of those things kind of like informed like how their backstories would be structured and how that would play out, and then I let those backstories kind of inform their personalities and like how they act and how they move through the world and how they treat other people and how they see each other. And the thing I really was always coming back to with both of them is that like I just really wanted them to both have this need for a home that they like never really felt like they had, and that they would find it in each other. And perhaps it's just because I was really listening to this one song called Visitor by Wet at the time, and there's like that where it goes like home you have to be one, and like I feel like that just became sort of my thesis statement for them. Yeah, and that was like, I think that like the best pairings in a romance are the ones where you kind of build the characters in tandem to each other, and that kind of makes them really feel so complementary and so like meant to be, you know?
I totally agree. And that actually is a weird but good segue. So I have some kind of lightning round things before we start taking questions, because you have so many questions.
Oh my God.
But I do want to say my first lightning round question for you is, what kind of dog would Jane and August be?
Oh my God. Well, I feel like Jane is like, I mean, in the book, I definitely compare her to a golden retriever. And I do see that for sure for her. Like I feel like she's definitely one of those dogs that like, you know, like the dogs that you can like give them like a raw egg and they'll like hold it in their mouth and not break it. Yes. Like it's like the hugest dog with just like the softest touch. Like I feel like I see that for her. And like August, I think is just like, she is some kind of like scrappy little, like one of those, I picture her being like one of those like wiry coat dogs, you know, like where like petting them is a little bit unpleasant, but they're like they've got like really fun and quirky personality.
Yeah, like one ear sticks up.
Yeah, it's like, it was like when I first got my dog, I have like a very like magazine cute dog. Like I describe her as like, she's just like, she's commercial cute. Yeah. But when I went to the shelter, I specifically was like, I want you to find me a dog that looks like you found it under a car. Like, like I want the ugliest dog you have.
A trash can.
Yeah, I was like, I want the ugliest dog you have. And I don't think August would be the ugliest dog in the shelter, but she would definitely be the one who's like maybe been there for like 6 to 10 months because she like keeps fighting people.
Yeah, she's scrappy. I love that those answers were exactly what I was hoping you would say, because I must have just like absorbed the golden retriever reference and missed it. But I was thinking at the time, like, Jane is such a golden retriever, and in real life, that's like the best thing that you can find, I think, is when you like meet someone who's a golden retriever, where it's like, you are just good.
Yes.
Just good.
Yes.
Kind. And I also thought of a dog that I didn't know existed until a year ago, a silken wind hound. They're these long-haired, majestic, like they come in different colors, but like they have like long, thin snouts. See that for her too. But I totally was thinking for August, like some kind of scrappy shelter dog who's just sort of like, maybe has 3 legs, but is like fast as any dog you've ever met. Okay.
Yes.
More. So these are sort of like, would you rathers? Well, actually, no, there's one where this is a question. If Lana Del Rey wrote a song or an album about Jane and August, what would it be called?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, she's already written Brooklyn Baby, which is very much, I see that one for them for sure. But I feel like it would be called something like, oh God, it would be something like, my girl built my bed's frame finally.
Yeah, it really would. It really would. And I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
You're sort of, would you rather sort of just like this or that? Okay. Enemies to lovers or crush at first sight?
Oh my God, that is so mean to me personally. But
They keep it for you.
I mean, listen, August and Jane, like I are like everything to me. But in terms of like the trope I have the most fun with, like right from jump, it's gonna be enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers. My third book is also a rivals to lovers situation. I'm here to have a good time.
Which is what the other lower back tattoo will say.
Okay, we're gonna have to go to the same shop and just get them done at the same time.
Yeah, honestly, matching post-COVID tattoos. Okay, are you more of an August or more of a Jane?
I'm definitely more of a Jane. We have the same Myers-Briggs personality type, which I know is like not a coincidence because I invented her, but I just like August was really hard for me to write at times because I'm so different from her. Like there are times that I would just be like, okay, what's the opposite of what I would do in this situation? Because like August like moves into an apartment full of like super cool seeming like people around her age.
Angels.
And like, right. And if I was in that situation, I would be like, oh my God, like what can I do to make you be my friend? Like I made cookies here. I've cleaned everything in the apartment. And yes. And like I feel like I would just completely like be so over the top, and August is like, no, I'm gonna sit in my room and not
like you
come
can't
out.
trust this, they're too nice, something's off here.
Right, yeah. So I just like really struggled with her sometimes to be like, man, this is not what I would do, but okay.
If you say so.
Yeah, so I'm definitely much more of a Jane. I'm much more of like a kind of barreling through life, running between the trains type of person. Although I would never run between the trains. In that way, I'm August.
Yeah, right. I mean, only a maniac.
Yeah, I do feel like I almost like asked my publisher if we could put like the disclaimer they would put at the beginning of episodes of Jackass. It's just like, do not try this.
And if you do, you cannot sue me.
Right.
It's your own bad decision.
Yes.
Okay,
if you
rather marry into royalty or marry into the 70s. I mean 1970s, not like you're marrying a 70-year-old.
Well, if you play your cards right, you could do both.
You could do both in either scenario. And with the royalty, it's like incredibly likely even.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would have said royalty if not for the fact that I just finished re-listening to like the 5-part You're Wrong About special on Princess Diana.
Yeah, and you're like,
and yeah, I mean, like obviously Meghan has had a really rough time as well, and it does not seem like fun. And I don't think Henry in my book is having a good time. I think he would very much like to have been born into like a very different situation.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say marry into the 70s. And I'm gonna hope for the best.
Yeah, I think situation. In the 70s, it's like you just hide a lot of things about yourself, whereas in royalty, it's like you just aren't allowed to have things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If this is not a would you rather, but I put it in the middle of all of them. If Alex, Henry, August, and Jane were stranded on an island together, what would each of them do?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, obviously August is in charge.
Yeah.
And she should be. Sorry, I'm gonna like adjust my lamp. I feel like I cannot tell if I have too much or not enough glare in my face.
I have like a soft focus filter, it looks like, but I think my camera must be dirty or something.
Okay, we're making, this is a book tour in the time of COVID. But so August is in charge. August is gonna have like a detailed itinerary of like who is gathering what. And she is going to have like the food is rationed. She knows what's going on. I think her and Alex are gonna
need to have an August on our islands.
Yes, we do. But here's the problem is that she is not going to be a good like team manager. She is not going to be like, she's not going to handle the high emotional stakes very well. And that is where you're going to need Jane and Henry. Jane and Henry are going to be like, Henry is going to be like, well, I've been in about 17 years of therapy, so I have some coping strategies for us. And Jane is going to be like very aggressively trying to like boost morale.
Yeah.
I also think like Jane and Alex are going to be like keeping everybody entertained at least. But Alex is going to be, I think like he's going to struggle with not being the leader, but he should not be the leader. I don't think that like he is going to do a good job with rationing the food. I think he is going to be like, but wouldn't it be fun? And like, and make us all feel better if we had like, yeah, like it would, you know, like I really would like some chocolate. And so I think that, but Alex is going to be the one that gets them rescued probably, because he is going to be the one that like comes up with the plan to signal a plane or something like that. I mean, I think mostly it's going to be a lot of like crying around the fire, but then like rallying with a sing-along maybe. And I think also Jane and August are both going to be like the hunter-gatherers, and like respectfully, like Henry's useless in that situation. Alex at least like is from Texas, so he like probably at least knows how to like gut a fish,
right?
You know.
Yeah.
But I think that like we're really going to be relying on Alex and Jane to,
we're going to be leaning heavily.
Yes. So everybody's going to have their roles though, and I think that Henry would be a very important like emotional glue.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think all of this adds up to a very survivable situation. So
Yes.
everybody should feel good about it, but I think there will be some fights.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Okay. Would you rather have to always wear the same outfit forever or always eat the same food every day?
Wear the same outfit, no question. If I don't have to pick what I wear every day, that's I mean, like as long as I can pick the outfit to start.
Right, exactly. You can pick out and the meal. So that's no,
I for sure the same outfit, because that would just remove a lot of stress from my day.
Right. And you, in this scenario, obviously it's not said, but it's magic. Like you don't smell bad, everything's fine. So that's not a concern.
Yes.
Okay. Would you rather, this is because of just some early speculation in the book, would you rather fall in love with a ghost or a vampire?
Oh my God. Definitely a vampire. I mean, I'm not too proud to say I was a Twilight stan when I was 16, and I think that I would just dip back into those wells of my brain and just get into it.
Yeah, you can't really cuddle with a ghost, as far as I understand. Like you can't get a lot of like physical anything from a ghost, and vampires are usually pretty hot, as far as most books that I've read. I don't read scary books, so that's why. Okay, this one is mean, and I'm sorry. If you could move into August's apartment, but you had to kick out one of the roommates, they're gonna live in the building still, but they can't move in with Isaiah. So like that, you know. So they're gonna live in the building, but they're gonna like move downstairs or upstairs or whatever. Who would you? So basically, you get to live with all of them except one. Who?
Oh my God. Well, this is hard because like I don't want to.
You can sacrifice August, just so you know.
Okay. Well, this is hard because I don't want to separate Nico and Mila, but I do think that Wes would be happy living alone.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that he mostly has roommates by necessity of his budget. And I think if he could just have like a really nice studio apartment, he would. And so I think
come upstairs and fix everything for them.
Yeah, I think that like if there's a nice studio unit that he can fix up and he can still come hang out, I actually think he would really enjoy it. I think they would definitely be like they would have to have like a dry erase board on the fridge that would be like, whose turn is it to go downstairs and check on Wes? You know?
Like turn on the lights a couple times.
Yes.
Calling his name.
Yeah, but I think ultimately it would maybe be a good thing for him in terms of what he personally would enjoy in a living space.
I agree. And I also just love all of some people are talking about Noodles. So Noodles would obviously have to stay behind and live with everyone. But people love, Wes is an underrated legend. I agree. Wes was like an instant fave for me. Okay, this is my last would you rather, and then we'll go to the Q&A.
Okay.
All y'all. So would you rather be in the situation where every bagel you eat has chocolate chips and peanut butter in it, or every coffee you drink has 5 sugars?
Okay, I'm gonna say something horrible, which is that every coffee I drink already has 5 sugars.
So that is an easy choice.
Yeah, no, I've gotten into making my own simple syrups in COVID. That's like one of my how we all have our weird little hobbies we picked up, and I make my own simple syrups now, and I put a disgusting amount in my coffee in the morning.
I mean, I cannot shame that because I drank black coffee for like 10 years, and then one day was like, from now on, I will drink cold brew with chocolate oat milk every single day. Okay. So, all right. That's a good answer. I'm glad that was so easy for you. We can go up on the high note. Yes. All right. Let's see some questions. Okay. your favorite way to work through writer's block. Also, this person says that they're a big fan of your work. So that should be said, which goes, I would imagine, and if you're here, you're probably a big fan of Casey's work, but you're a big fan of your work. What's your favorite way to work through writer's block?
My favorite way to work through writer's block. I mean, I really think that like the change of scenery is pretty hard to beat as a writer's block strategy. For me, like it could even just be like just changing my position in the room. You know, like there was like one time I remember I was working on One Last Stop and I was so stuck. I just like moved everything onto the floor and just like fully like prone on the floor, just like writing, just right. Yes, exactly. And I think that like I also love like going on walks, especially like with my dog and like maybe like not letting myself take my phone. I mean, it's New York, so I kind of have to take my phone just in case like it's weird. Like maybe putting on airplane mode and just thinking. Like sometimes I find that like I actually already know what I need to know to like fix something. I just need to do it. Same thing goes for taking showers. I've fixed a lot of plot problems taking walks and taking showers. So those are like probably my biggest like tips and tricks.
Which both of those things are already good for you.
Yes,
so like
they
that's
are.
good life advice. Okay, this person says, what was different between the writing process of One Last Stop and Red, White, and Royal Blue, and also love from Argentina?
Ooh, Argentina. Love that. Yes, I think that like the biggest change. Well, first of all, like my first book was like I had a job when I was writing it. Like I had a day job. And so it was very much my procrastination project. It was like my thing that like when I was like burnt out with everything else, I would go work on it. And then my second book, like this was my job, you know, and it sometimes is harder to like really like lock into that like hyperfixation mode, which is kind of my sweet spot writing.
Yes.
Right. When it's like the thing that I'm supposed to do every day. Like the way my brain works is like, oh, that's the last thing I want to hyperfixate on is the thing I'm supposed to be doing. And so it was definitely like a more difficult, like longer, more drawn out process because it was harder for me to like lock into that mode of like, this is all I want to like eat, sleep, breathe, and think about, you know? And so I would say it was much more like a hard one, hyperfixation. And I think also like the plotting was more difficult because there were so many things going on. Like there's the romance plot, the time travel plot, and the diner plot. And all of those overlap with each other in different ways. So I had like at the time I was like living in a house with friends where I didn't have a door in my bedroom. And I had, as you do, you know, and I had like a folding screen that was like a room divider that like was my door and it was made of chalkboard. And so each panel I got like different colors of chalk and I would do like plot A, plot B, plot C. And I would write out like bullet points like what's happening, and I would use my my color coded chalks to like be like, and then this is where this overlaps with this, and this is how this part, like this solution to this plot is also going to solve this plot. That was not something I had to do for Red, White, and Royal Blue. I honestly had a much more like straightforward, like linear outline, you know.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I feel like those are the biggest
Yeah, I mean,
differences for sure.
they're super different books, while also both being like, now that you have these two books, it's like, okay, I feel like I know what a Casey McQuiston book is. Like,
Yes.
they definitely like they fit together, and I love that they're both also in like such a similar color scheme. So
Yes.
they belong together, but like, yeah,
Yes.
they're so different in so many of the like more visible ways. So that
For
makes
sure.
sense.
For sure.
Somebody wants to know, why did you decide to write romance novels? What really pushed you into the genre? I think that's a fun one.
I think it was trial and error because it was not the first genre I tried to write. I actually I tried to write YA fantasy. When I was like in high school, I was like, that was what I was reading. That's what I loved to read. And I was like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And I like had all of these different ideas and I tried to do them. And I am just so bad at fantasy world building.
Same.
It is a really, really difficult skill set. And it's not one that I have. And I have like a lot of friends who write YA fantasy and I'm just in awe of every single one of them, you know, and I the only thing that I like was good at and enjoyed about those attempts was the romanticism. And I still think about like some of those like romances I came up with for that were in those stories. And so when I was like sitting down, I got to like a point in my like mid-20s where I was like, I really want to like give this like the hardest try I've ever tried in my life and like actually write a book. It was just like, you know, this is what I'm drawn to. This is what I care most about in everything I've ever like watched, read, or listened to. This is like relationships. Like I feel like I've said this so many times, but I am the number one apologist for the Lost finale because it like does not explain any of the plot, but it does bring you full circle to a complete satisfying conclusion on every single character's arc and every relationship in that setup.
Watch it with an open heart.
Yes. And like that's what I have always cared about in fiction. And so I was like, this is what I do. Like I write romance. I like read romance. Like one of the first adult books I remember reading was like a Janet Ivanovich romance novel I stole from my sister. And I was like, I should just be writing romance. And so I did, and it worked out.
Yeah. I think that's such a common trajectory. I feel like the whole like trying to write fantasy or whatever, where you're like this, like, you know, you love reading that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what
my wheelhouse.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're that good at writing longing, this is what you should be doing. At least for now.
Thank you.
For us.
Thank you. We love some yearning.
We love some yearning. We live for that. Okay, so there are a couple I'm going to tie together because there are a lot of questions about the Sue special we have not talked about yet. So somebody wants to know what inspired the Sue special, and then someone else does not know what Texas Toast is, so they're going to need that kind of folded into the.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Well, first we'll start with explaining Texas Toast. So Texas Toast is basically just a very, very thick, like probably about this thick slice of white bread that is like buttered and toasted on both sides, like on a griddle. Not like in a toaster, but like on a griddle. So it's just the like a sort of like a gentle sear on the exterior of the bread, and it's still like really soft on the inside. And so like that's Texas Toast. And then the Sue special was like, so like I did my time waiting tables after college, and we, you know, always had those like specific items that were like off menu items that you could like ring up at the end of your shift, and like the line cooks would make it for you. And I like think that's like a really cute and rich world building device for like, I wanted it to feel like this is a diner that's been around forever, and the team is a family and they have like their own things. And the Sue special was going to be that. And so I just kind of test kitchened it, you know.
Really?
I knew, I knew I wanted to do hot sauce and maple syrup because I'm from the South, and if we know one thing from chicken and waffles, it's that hot sauce and maple syrup are meant to be together. And then also when I was a kid, I always liked to have maple syrup with my like fried eggs for whatever reason. And so I was like, okay, we're doing a bacon and egg sandwich. And for a minute it was going to be cheese. And I was like, no cheese. Too much going on there. So it was like a runny egg, bacon, hot sauce, syrup on Texas Toast. And I like cooked it, and it was so good. And I was like, we're doing this. And so that's where it came from. And it just like, I think it's just like, it needs to be like that off menu item that you order at the end of the shift that like that line cook is going to make for you when he's been working for 6 hours. It cannot be complicated. Like it needs to be some stuff he's already making. It's very easy. You can probably put the hot sauce on yourself, you know. So yeah, that's how
much thought went into that. So I'm really happy somebody actually asked that question.
Yeah.
Have you had one? This is from me in the audience. Have you had one in the last few weeks? When was the last time you had a Sue special?
I made one. So this is like something really upsetting actually, which is that you can get Texas Toast in the store like anywhere in the South. And so I went to the store expecting to be able to buy like a loaf of Texas Toast, which is basically just like a thick cut white bread loaf. You cannot find that anywhere in New York. Yeah, it's very upsetting. You
I'm
can
not
get, like
in the South, and I'm shocked, but I'm South enough, I guess.
Yeah, but so like you can get like the frozen Texas Toast that's like got like garlic and herbs on it, but that's like it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen some people like making it with the garlic Texas Toast, and I'm like, listen, it could be good. I don't know, but I cannot vouch for that.
Garlic is a whole
Yeah.
other flavor you're introducing.
Right. So I actually had to like, I baked a loaf of white bread. Like this was commitment, baby.
Desperation.
Yes. I baked a loaf of white bread and cut it myself. And then, yeah, this is probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I really wanted to get some pictures for Instagram. And so I made one, and it's just like, it just still hits. It still hits. I am like so happy for this to be like, you never really can predict like what's going to be the thing that people like kind of take away as like, oh, this is I'm going to like kind of mosaic into my life now from a book. I really like love that people have already been like tagging me making this Sue special.
Yeah, people chat popping up, as I'm not seeing anything, but some people popping up saying they made it this morning. Like that's happening.
Yes.
The Sue special is happening. And because we're talking about Pancake Billy's House of Pancakes, which I actually think is an amazing name for a pancake house. That kind of segues into this other question. So there are really two, or even almost three, like found family situations going on in this book, which is just so lovely. There is like the work family. There's Lucy, who's just like I feel like she's not even in it all that much, but it's like she's so memorable. And then there's everyone in the apartment. So this person wants to know, how important was it for you to include a found family full of queer people? Because this apartment situation is just like magical and safe, and everybody's so interesting and funny and cool. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it's just that all my friends are interesting and funny and cool. So I just wanted to reflect my life. No, I'm kidding. But I do think that my friends are pretty funny and cool. And I do think that like I really wanted the world of the book to kind of just like look like the world that I like live in and experience every day. I mean, at the time I wasn't living in New York, but I have there are a lot of like little idiosyncratic things in each of these characters that are like, oh, well, like my friend so-and-so does that. Like, and I just really wanted to explore this, like the theme of found family is something that like queer people really gravitate to for obvious reasons, because, if sometimes you just like need to be surrounded by people who get you and like think the way you think and like feel the way you feel. And I think that like, I just really wanted to explore this idea of found family from every possible angle. Like I wanted to do it in the literal way of like literally finding a family member.
You did go there. You did.
Yeah, I did. We're doing it on all the levels. And I wanted to do, I don't know, like I had this character of August who was so lonely and so isolated and so like determined to stay that way. And I wanted her to, wouldn't it be so wonderful if you were someone like that and you managed to just like find this like ecosystem of love that kind of absorbed you into it, like as soon as you got there. And I wanted to just show what that would look like and explore that as something that I think like we talk a lot about wish fulfillment in romance and in romantic comedies, especially in my book. And I think to me, like the biggest wish fulfillment element of the whole book is like just being surrounded and held and like supported by like a network of people who you have this beautiful reciprocal, warm, generous affection with, that's like really based on like a lot of choice and a lot of like really specific shared experiences. I think that's kind of like a really, really cool thing about any queer friend group is that how special that is. And I also thought it would be really fun to just do a book where there weren't like, it was like literally a 100% queer cast. I was like, this sounds fun. I want to do it. And so I did.
Well, and it's interesting because reading it, you're like, it is real life. Like it is real life. That's a lot of people's experiences. Like that's a lot of people's communities. And like, I think people sometimes try to be like, that's, I don't know, pandering or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like reading it, it's like, this is just a real friend group.
Yeah.
It's real people.
Yeah.
I just one line actually from the book that like I will probably carry in my heart until I eventually get dementia. I remember August talking about Mila and being like, usually people kind of like gradually build friendships.
Yeah.
But Mila sort of just like shows up full force and is like, we are friends now.
Yeah.
And you feel like, there are those magical people you meet throughout life. And I think Nico's that way too. Wes is like, his sneaky little self kind of into her heart. But both Mila and Nico are like, we're here. We're here
Yeah.
and we're friends and we're family. And it's like, you do meet those people in real life. And
Yes.
like, what fucking luck
I know.
someone like this.
That's like one of my best college friends is somebody was like that exact type of relationship, and that is the person who invented the game that Rolly Banks is based on.
I knew Rolly Banks had to be real.
yeah, I'm funny, but I don't know if I'm that funny.
I mean, but you wrote the I don't remember again what the line was, but the Lana Del Rey question, which was inspired.
Oh my God, comatose in California.
Comatose in California. And somebody really quietly is like, that's my favorite Lana Del Rey album, or like whatever the joke is. And
it's so like exactly what like your friend would like, you would be like going through something serious and like your friend would just like quietly in the group chat be like, well.
Yeah, like I understand and respect this very real thing. However,
yes.
I
think Serena's coming back. We're at time.
I hate to cut y'all off because this has been so much fun.
Yes.
Out of time. The chat has been equal parts hilarious and glorious. So I want to just thank you all for participating and sending all your questions. There's so many amazing questions here, and I'm really sorry we couldn't get to them all, but definitely make sure to check out the rest of Casey's tours if you want to get those questions answered. Thank you again so much for coming, and we're going to drop that link in the chat if you can find it. If not, you can just visit the URL booksaremagic.net/1/last-stop-event. You can also find the book there. Just as a reminder for those asking, those will be signed. We are past the cutoff date for personalization, but Casey has spent hours and hours generously spending their time with us in the store to get those books signed for you all. So definitely rest assured that they will be signed. Thank you again so much. Happy Pride.
Yes, happy Pride.
Thank you, Casey, and congratulations to both of you on your books. And
yes.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank y'all.